children are living in an environment where just even normal expression is being diminished. Like everything's being shortened. So there's not much that's expressed. So we see, language arts, the highest maybe expression we could see in church life, in liturgy. We see it in good writing. And we also see it in the home in terms of how the parents interact with their own children, because everybody's so busy and things are sometimes chaotic. So parents themselves sometimes teach their children a kind of a very not a great, they don't give a great example in terms of their own expression, and parents have to work with that. In the church, we have an example. In home life, we have an example of the use of language. And then in school itself, where, as many people have said, if children are exposed to good literature early, then they have a level to judge other literature. And a lot of writers used other writers as models to develop their own voice, their own writing style. But I know Robert Louis Stevenson used to copy the writing style of others to try to mimic it, and then he ended up developing his own. So there's so many different aspects of language arts that's different from just thinking of it as a number of different skills, learning to read, learning comprehension, learning how to do essay writing as just kind of separate subjects or separate disciplines that somehow add together. But if you start from the whole, the logos, or the beginning and the most exalted forms of language arts, then you could see how all of them fit together. And we see that, we've seen that so many people have been inspired by different writings, even to come to the Orthodox Church. I've heard said that the book Brothers Karamazov and The Way of a Pilgrim have been instrumental for a lot of people. But other books, too, have inspired various ideas. And I think this is why St. Basil the Great, in the argument in the early church about how to approach what was considered pagan writing, fortunately St. Basil the Great's thoughts prevailed, which is that we should take from all writing and all literature the best, that which will support our Christian understanding of life, this illumined understanding of life. And so this is kind of the breadth of language arts. Interestingly enough, when Saint Nicholas of Japan was sent to Japan, he met Saint Innocent in passage, and Saint Innocent told him to go to the Buddhist temples and listen to the priests, the way they talked, and to learn from them the language, and that would be the best, level of language to learn. So these are some, aspects of language arts. If we could talk now about some of the other subjects, and we could see that there's an Orthodox understanding or foundation. Well, actually, someone who I talked about Orthodox education too. I said, well, they said, well, is there Orthodox math? And I said, well, there's an understanding that includes mathematics. He said, well, you mean like one apostle plus two apostles equal three apostles? And that's unfortunately sometimes how we think about academics, as just being academics are academics. Someone said math is math. And I said, I don't agree with that. That's, you could say, idolatry in education is to just think of something just as itself, that it's not connected, that it's not revealed in some way. It's not part of the fact that God, shows something within his creation. St. Paul in Romans 1:20 tells us that everything of the physical creation expresses somehow or reveals somehow things of the unseen world, even the Godhead himself. And I think this is how we have to understand or this is a way of understanding how academics could either be a veil over the revelation of God, or it can help, be like a window. So in mathematics, one great mathematician said, mathematics is the study of patterns, or the study of deep thoughts or deep ideas. Sometimes in math, some of the mathematical ideas became a window to understand some scientific ideas. And it was after the math was developed that the science was developed. So, and I think for children, mathematics helps them to think clearly and logically. We insist that they write in a clear way, and that they show how they move from one step to the next. And this shows the relationship between math and just even something like logic. And in science, which it's interesting that science has become synonymous in our minds with the study of truth, or the study of creation itself. And I like to look at it more as science is a method, a very particular method of the study of the created order. There's other ways of studying creation or of pondering creation. Theology is one of them. That like Saint or Father Dumitru Staniloae says theologically that creation is a gift. This is not a scientific study. This is a revelatory understanding that it's a gift of God. And to enter or to look at creation that way is very important, especially if we look now at some of the ecological disasters. Perhaps if we had not just the scientific or the engineering model of how to relate to the creation, but a theological understanding that it's a gift, we would deal with the creation. We would decide whether to use certain technologies or not based on that. So there's lots of ways. Even art is a way of studying creation, because it's a way of just observing creation. And great scientists, one we like to study at school, George Washington Carver, was first an observer of creation and had deep respect for creation. And he says that's why things in creation opened up to him. He began to see things and see or have an understanding of creation because of that. And I think that's a very important understanding for our children to have. The Six Nations, the chiefs of the American native tribe, the Six Nations, were invited to send their young men to William and Mary College in the expansion of the West, and in that time. And this was a generous offer by the occupying forces, you could say, of the Americans who were entering into their lands, and to share their knowledge. And it was interesting, their response, which maybe Orthodox Christians should have a similar response to this invitation. They thanked the fathers of this college for the invitation, but they said, we've had experience in the past where some of our young braves went to your colleges. And when they came back, when they came back onto our lands, they couldn't fish, they couldn't hunt, they couldn't run anymore. They didn't know how to make a teepee or a house or a hut. Basically, they said they were good for nothing. So they thanked them, and they instead said, why don't you send some of your young men to us, and we will train them to be, fully men. And also within that, they said, every nation, every group have their own values and have their own things that are important to them. And, they expressed it in this context, that this is what was important. And so we would say, for Orthodox Christians, what is important for us? What do we value more than anything else? And this is what would then, shape our curriculum and shape our education of the children.